The beginning of series, we see Yanan is a beautiful and kind girl, kinder even than Baha Sultan himself. But unfortunately, she went through a terrible shock when she was a child. She saw her mother burned to death right before her eyes. She grew up traumatized to the point that she has nightmares every night about her mother's death. The trauma also made her lose her voice. She became unable to speak, but that wasn't the end of her suffering. Her father remarried a wicked woman named Li, who had a daughter called Yao. Both Li and Yao constantly bullied Yanan and treated her cruelly. One day, Li told Yanan that the family business was in crisis and that her father had decided to sell her late mother's school to solve their financial problems. Yanan protested, saying that the school belonged to her mother and was part of her inheritance. But Li told her it didn't matter. Her father had already made his decision, and if Yanan had anything to say, she should say it directly to him. Yanan agreed to go with her to see him, but instead, Li led her deep into the forest, where she ordered the guards to beat her severely and leave her for dead. When Yanan regained consciousness, she found herself in a bedroom. At the same time, Li handed over the key to that same room to a businessman she wanted to attract as an investor for their company. In other words, she was selling Yanan to him. However, when the man entered the room, he discovered that Yanan had escaped. He and his security began searching for her, but Yanan had hidden inside the wardrobe. Once they left, she quietly snuck out, trying to flee, but one of the guards spotted her and started chasing her. Yanan kept running until she saw a hotel waiter. She tried to ask for his help, but he ignored her and quickly entered another guest's room. That guest's name was Ming, a powerful businessman and the heir to a vast corporate empire. The waiter had secretly drugged Ming's food, and he thought Yanan was the girl hired to frame Ming in a scandal. So Yanan suddenly found herself trapped inside Ming's room without knowing what to do. As she tried to explain herself, some men began banging on the door, apparently looking for her. So she begged Ming for help. But Ming, dizzy from the drug, became angry and ordered her to leave. She couldn't because the thugs were right outside. Soon the drug took full effect. Ming lost control and tried to force himself on her. Meanwhile, a hidden drone camera was recording everything. Yanan fought back fiercely, hitting Ming until he passed out, and she managed to escape from the room. Later, it's revealed that Ming is the heir to one of the biggest corporate conglomerates in the country, filthy rich and constantly followed by the media. Because he had just returned from abroad after his father's death, the press was obsessed with his every move. The next day, Ming attended a board meeting with the company's investors, including his uncle Hong Yu, who strongly opposed Ming taking his father's position. Ming told them bluntly, "That's how it is. If you have any objections, save them for the next board vote." Hong Yu grew furious and decided to use the scandalous footage from the night before, showing Ming drunk and unconscious, to destroy him. It turns out all of it was part of Hong Yu's plan. Meanwhile, Yanan went back to her father's house. She attacked Li and told her father everything, that Li had kidnapped her and tried to harm her. But Li defended herself, claiming Yanan was lying, and started crying to gain the father's sympathy. Her father, siding with Li, yelled angrily at Yanan, telling her to respect her stepmother, who was like her real mother, and kicked her out of the house. Yanan, heartbroken, told him that she didn't care if he refused to believe her, but begged him not to sell her late mother's school. Her father coldly replied that the school would be sold, and he didn't want to hear her mother's name ever again in that house. Then, he insulted Yanan's mother. That was the last straw. Yanan shouted at him, telling him not to insult her mother, because it was his wife, Li, who was vile, not her late, innocent mother. Enraged, her father slapped her hard across the face and threw her out of the house. Li took advantage of the situation, crying and pretending to be the victim. She told her husband that Yanan hated her and that she was innocent, while Yanan was the one full of spite and lies. Li tried to convince her husband not to feel guilty about selling the school. She said, "You didn't really want to sell it, did you? But think about it. Who would ever marry a mute girl like Yanan? The businessman was interested in her, so I wanted to connect them. That way, he'd invest in our company too. We'd win on all sides." Her husband seemed somewhat persuaded by her manipulative reasoning, but Yao suddenly interrupted and showed him the leaked photos of Ming and Yanan that had spread all over social media. The scandal caused serious trouble for Ming. Hong Yu, his uncle, told him, "This is terrible for the company's image. A chairman can't have a reputation like this." Ming fired back, "Why should my reputation be ruined just because I was secretly photographed in my own private room with my fiancé?" Hong Yu was stunned. "Your fiancé? What are you talking about?" Ming replied calmly, "Yes, my fiancé. I just hadn't wanted to reveal her identity Yet Hong Yu was left speechless. After that, Ming began searching for information about Yinan, determined to find her before things got worse. Meanwhile, Li and her men went to Yinan's house and kidnapped her again. At that very moment, Ming arrived at her home and saw what was happening. He quickly followed the car that had taken her. The kidnappers delivered Yinan to the same disgusting businessman she had escaped from before. He started to harass her again, but Yinan fought back fiercely, hitting him and managing to escape onto the road. The men chased after her, but while running in fear, she suddenly saw Ming. He stepped in to defend her, fought the thugs, and defeated them all. Yinan, terrified and shaken, was comforted when Ming gently told her, "I'm the man you hit last night in the hotel." Recognizing him, Yinan froze for a moment. He had helped her. After chasing the men away, Ming sat with her and properly introduced himself. He asked her to talk, and although she hesitated, she finally agreed. Ming then showed her an engagement contract and said, "My reputation has been badly damaged because of those photos. I need to clear my name. The only way is for you to officially become my fiancé. That way, your reputation will be restored too." Yinan refused immediately. "I'm not playing this fake relationship game," she said. But Ming insisted. "It's the best solution for both of us. Think of it as a work contract. Strictly professional, with fair terms." He kept talking, trying to convince her, but Yinan suddenly received a message on her phone. She smiled faintly and walked off before he could finish speaking, leaving Ming stunned by her bluntness. The message was from her school principal, warning her about a problem. Yinan rushed there and found an angry parent protesting the school's closure and sale. "Our children's education will suffer because of this," the woman cried. Yinan reassured her, "I'm a teacher here, and the daughter of the school's founder. I'll solve this. Nothing will harm the students or this school." The parent trusted her but warned, "If I hear anything again about closing the school, I won't stay silent." Afterward, Yinan couldn't stop thinking about how to save her late mother's school from her father and stepmother's greed. She went back to see Ming and apologized for leaving so abruptly earlier. She told him she agreed to sign the engagement contract, but only on one condition. He must buy the land her mother's school was built on so her father couldn't sell it. At first, Ming refused. Yinan turned to leave, but then used her charm and sweet tone to persuade him. Eventually, Ming sighed and agreed to her terms. He told her he'd hold ownership of the land during their contract period and return it to her afterward. Yinan smiled and said she was fine with that, then signed the engagement contract. After signing, Ming explained the rules. She had to inform him of everything she did during work hours and never act independently. He also told her she would move into his house. He had already prepared a room for her, but under one strict condition: she must never enter his private room. Yinan agreed and soon settled into her new room. Later, she accompanied Ming to meet his grandfather and the rest of the family. During the visit, the grandfather pulled Ming aside. Ming turned to Yinan and said quietly, "Please don't mess anything up while I'm gone, and try to stay focused." In every move Yinan made, she tried to stay calm and keep control of the situation. Meanwhile, Ming's grandfather scolded him harshly for getting engaged to Yinan, the daughter of the Shu family. It turned out there had been long-standing business conflicts between the two families, the grandfather's company and Yinan's late father's company. Ming defended himself, saying he knew exactly what he was doing. He told his grandfather that Shu's companies were already struggling financially, and that acquiring them could help expand their own empire. The grandfather liked Ming's reasoning and agreed to the engagement, but on one condition. Once the business deal was secured, Ming had to break up with Yinan. Ming accepted, saying he viewed his engagement to Yinan as a strategic relationship. Later, Hong Yu confronted Ming and said bitterly, "So you got engaged to the daughter of our enemies? You know the problem isn't just business, right? Her mother was your father's mistress." Ming shot back coldly. "Whose father are you talking about? Yours or mine?" Hong Yu sneered. "Ah, that's right, I forgot. You're the illegitimate son. Of course you wouldn't care about morality or family honor." Ming replied, "Maybe I'm illegitimate, but I'm still the one running all the companies you live off of." Then he walked away, leaving Hong Yu fuming with rage. At the same time, the women in Ming's family were gossiping cruelly about Yinan, saying all kinds of nasty, disrespectful things about her, thinking she couldn't hear them because she was mute. What they didn't realize was that Yinan wasn't deaf. She just didn't speak because of her psychological trauma. She heard every word they said. Instead of being hurt, Yinan smirked as she listened through the phone. Their insults didn't upset her at all. On the contrary, they made her feel proud of herself and her cleverness. In fact, she teased them by pretending to talk on the phone, loudly saying, "Ming loves me so much." He told me I'm the first woman he's ever truly loved and that he only wants my happiness. She kept going just to irritate them, enjoying how angry and jealous they looked. Right then, Ming entered the room. He frowned and told her he was deducting 10 points from her engagement behavior score system. He explained that because of recent rumors, Yanan needed to collect 100 points during their engagement for him to consider allowing her to return to her teaching job at the school. During lunch, Yanan tried to act like a caring fiancé by serving Ming some fish, not realizing he was allergic to it. He immediately deducted another 10 points from her score. Meanwhile, Lee was boiling with jealousy. She couldn't stand the fact that Yanan was now engaged to Ming. She knew that once Yanan became powerful, she would take revenge on her and her daughter. Lee met with Yao to plan how to break Ming and Yanan apart. Yao suggested seducing Ming so he'd fall for her and dump Yanan, but Lee refused, saying she wouldn't put her daughter in danger. Instead, she came up with a more cunning plan to ruin Yanan's reputation so that Ming's family would pressure him to leave her. Lee started spreading rumors to Ming, saying, Yanan's reputation is disgusting. She's not well behaved. She's done horrible things. I'm only telling you this because I don't want you to be deceived by her fake innocence. Ming cut her off coldly and said, stay out of my personal life, before walking away. He had a major press conference that day, where he planned to officially announce his engagement to Yanan. Yanan attended the conference as well. But just as Ming began to speak, reporters suddenly received mysterious messages containing photos of Yanan with another man. The reporters immediately bombarded Ming with questions. Mr. Ming, how could you get engaged to such a woman? Is this true? The room erupted in chaos. Of course, the leak was Lee's doing. Yanan tried to explain, insisting that the photos were fake, digitally fabricated, but no one gave her a chance to speak. Ming quickly grabbed her and led her out of the conference hall. Outside, Yanan cried, telling him, I'm innocent. Those photos are fake. Ming said calmly, I don't believe they're real. I'll handle it. He then turned to his assistant and said quietly, we could use this scandal to our advantage. End the engagement, clean up my reputation, and I wouldn't have to keep pretending anymore. His assistant replied, exactly. Let her take the fall. You save yourself. Yanan overheard their conversation and was devastated. She told Ming, don't interfere. I'll handle my own problem. Ming replied firmly, I said I'd help you, and I meant it. Don't be so stubborn. He immediately contacted the company's tech department, ordering them to investigate and prove that the photos were fabricated. At that moment, Lee and Yao were with the reporters, continuing to slander Nan's reputation. They spoke badly about her, painting her as a deceitful woman pretending to be innocent, and even apologized to the media on her behalf. But just then, Ming entered and publicly defended Nan, proving that the photos were fabricated. He declared that he had already reported the crime to the police and that whoever spread those lies about his fiancée would pay a heavy price, both legally and financially. Lee was furious because her plan had completely failed. Later, Ming went back to Nan and told her that he had handled the situation. She thanked him sincerely, but he coldly replied that he didn't need her gratitude. Instead, he was deducting 50 points from her record. Nan felt upset since her goal was to collect enough points to return to her teaching job. Afterward, she went to the restroom and happened to see Lee talking secretly with a cleaning lady who seemed to be threatening her about something. Suspicious, Nan asked Ming's assistant to take her to the worker's supervisor. When they arrived, she asked who that cleaner was, and the supervisor told her that the woman was a temporary worker named Jilan. Nan immediately remembered that, when she was little, there had been a woman named Jilan working in their house, someone who used to give her mother medicine. Shocked, Nan took Jilan's phone number from the supervisor and began thinking deeply about the possible connection between Jilan and Lee, especially since, after her parents' death, her father had dismissed most of the servants except Jilan. Nan started to wonder if there was any link between her mother's mysterious death and Lee. Determined to uncover the truth, Nan went to her father's house and tried to speak with him, but he refused, saying he didn't want to talk to her. Yao mocked her cruelly, but Nan firmly replied that she was his real daughter, while Yao was just his wife's child, meaning she had no right to throw her out. Nan's plan was to reconcile with her father so that he would trust her again and eventually see his wife and stepdaughter's true nature. She softly told her father that she missed him and was sad about the tension between them. She even said that if he wanted her gone, she would disappear. Her words moved him deeply, and he told her he never wanted her to vanish from his life. They began to reconnect, fishing together like they used to. Lee saw them bonding and became furious. She didn't want Nan's relationship with her father to improve, but Nan was clever. During lunch with her father and Lee, she intentionally brought up her late mother, saying her mother used to write diaries and that she wanted to read them. Her father replied that all of her mother's belongings were in the storage room, and she could take whatever she liked. Lee overheard this and followed Nan secretly when she went to get the diaries. But Nan caught her red-handed and confronted her, asking, "So, you're the one who killed my mother, aren't you?" Lee smirked sarcastically and said, "Your mother? That lunatic didn't need anyone to kill her." Nan, holding back anger, demanded, "Then why were you with her nurse that day?" Referring to the cleaner, Jalan. Lee laughed and said mockingly, "Wow, you have quite an imagination. You'll twist anything just to make your mother look innocent. But it's not going to work. Believe whatever fantasy you want." She refused to say anything useful because she knew Nan was secretly recording her. Then she left. This made Nan even more suspicious of Lee. That night, Nan stayed at her father's house again. When Ming found out, he went there and told her he would stay the night too. Nan was embarrassed and had to introduce him to her father, who clearly disliked him. Lee wondered why Ming insisted on staying in a house where everyone opposed his engagement to Nan. Ming replied that he just wanted to make sure she was safe. Nan teased him, asking, "Oh, so you were worried about me?" He awkwardly denied it, saying, "Of course not. I just didn't want anyone to hurt you. Plus, it's lonely sleeping alone in that big house." His silly answer made her laugh, but she was still annoyed when he told her she'd have to sleep on the floor. Nan decided to get back at him by scaring him with ghost stories, and when he got frightened and moved closer, she burst out laughing. Then, in a softer tone, she said that when she was a child, she used to be scared too, but her mother would calm her down. And after her mother died, no one could comfort her anymore. She mentioned that she used to listen to a particular song to distract herself, and she started playing it. It turned out to be a terribly eerie song. Ming sighed, saying he surrendered and told her to take the bed while he'd sleep on the floor. The next morning, Ming began speaking with Shu. When Ming mentioned that he intended to buy their company, Mr. Shu became furious. He turned to Nan and shouted, "So that's why you came back? To play games with me?" Nan stood there confused, not understanding what was going on. Later, she overheard Ming talking about the business deal and realized he was planning to purchase her family's company. Nan was deeply upset. That wasn't part of her plan, and she feared it would destroy everything she'd worked for. She immediately went to her father to explain that she had no idea about Ming's intentions and that she only wanted what was best for him. She told him she would support whatever decision he made, whether he decided to sell or not. Her sincerity softened her father's heart. After some discussion, he agreed to the sale, but only under one condition, that he would retain a small percentage of the shares so that the deal would become a business partnership between the two families rather than a takeover. Ming accepted those terms, and everything was settled. Just as Mr. Shu was about to sign the agreement, Lee suddenly intervened and told him not to trust Ming and Nan, that they were deceiving him. Mr. Shu snapped at her angrily, telling her it was his company and his decision. He signed the contract anyway. After the signing, Ming and Nan returned home, but Nan became distant, always busy and often leaving without telling Ming where she was going. He grew suspicious of her strange behavior and decided to follow her. He eventually saw her meeting with an unfamiliar man and immediately ordered his assistant to investigate him. It turned out that Nan had been meeting with a private investigator to dig into the truth about her mother's past, but she hadn't told Ming about it. One day, while Nan was following a lead, a man suddenly harassed her in the street. He grabbed her and tried to assault her, but before he could hurt her, Ming appeared just in time. He fought the man off violently, warning him never to come near Nan again. Injured and bleeding, he took Nan home, where she treated his wounds. When he asked her why she had been acting behind his back, she stayed silent, unable to tell him the truth since her investigation was still incomplete. The next day, Nan cooked Ming's favorite meal to thank him for saving her. Ming was touched, though he tried not to show it. Just as they were eating, Ming received a phone call from his assistant, who informed him that the mysterious man Nan had met earlier was indeed a private investigator she had hired to look into Lee's past. The assistant added that the detective had refused to help her because she couldn't afford to pay him. Ming secretly arranged for the investigator to be paid and instructed him to continue working for Nan without telling her that Ming was behind it. Soon after, the day of the company's celebration party arrived, the event where Mr. Shu would officially transfer part of his company's shares to Ming. Nan got dressed elegantly and attended the party with him. While mingling, she approached Lee, who was surrounded by her friends, all of whom were gossiping about Nan's late mother. They praised Lee for being such a kind, graceful woman who had endured so much while raising Nan and insulted Nan's mother's memory. Nan, pretending to be polite, agreed sarcastically, saying, "You're right. She really was something. before accidentally spilling juice on Lee's expensive dress. Acting apologetic, Nan offered her a new dress she'd brought along. Lee went to change, but when she put it on, she was horrified. The dress was highly inappropriate, revealing, and scandalous. Nan smirked and said, "Don't you recognize this style? Doesn't it remind you of anything?" Lee snapped, "Remind me of what?" Nan replied coldly, "Of the place where you used to work. The kind of clothes you wore back then, pretending to come from a high-class family while you were nothing more than a woman who seduced married men. You talk about my mother being indecent, but you're the one with no shame. And your daughter? She's not even your ex-husband's child. She's my father's illegitimate daughter. You tricked him into betraying my mother while she was still alive, and you didn't stop until she died broken because of you. And now you have the nerve to call her immoral?" Lee glared at her and scoffed. "Immoral? Please. What's the problem? Did I force your father? He knew exactly who I was, and he still chose me. So don't pretend he's innocent." Nan exploded and lunged at her. A fierce fight broke out between them. Lee slapped and hit Nan repeatedly, shouting, "You're just like your mother, pathetic and naive. Your father loved me and begged me to be his mistress. If anyone's to blame, it's your mother for not being able to keep her husband." She began choking Nan violently, screaming, "Even if your mother were still alive, she'd never compare to me." But what Lee didn't know was that the entire scene was being recorded live and broadcast on the big screens at the party. Everyone saw the truth, Lee's aggression and her shocking confession. The guests gasped and chaos erupted. Mr. Shu stormed over, furious, demanding an explanation. Lee panicked and tried to twist the story, claiming that Nan had provoked her and that she was the real victim. She begged Mr. Shu to believe her, saying Nan only wanted to humiliate their family in front of everyone. But the damage was already done. Mr. Shu's anger turned to disbelief and shame. He looked at Lee with disgust as the truth about her finally came to light. He argued with her arrogantly, showing no remorse for what happened to her mother because of their family. But Ming stepped in, saying that Nian wasn't at fault, that Lee had acted like a snake, stealing a huge portion of Nian's mother's property and secretly transferring it to her own name. Hearing that, Zhou got furious at all of them and stormed out, determined to handle the scandal before it spread. When Yao found out what happened, she attacked Nian with a knife, but Ming intervened and took the stab in her place. The sight of blood caused him to faint immediately. Nian rushed him home, called a doctor, and learned from Ming's assistant that Ming suffered from a phobia of blood and close physical contact due to a psychological condition. That's when Nian finally understood why Ming had fainted before when she accidentally bumped into him. After some time, Ming regained consciousness, smiled weakly, and felt a bit better. Nian then went downstairs to see why her father had come. He told her that he was there to ask her to convince Ming not to press assault charges against Yao. Nian felt her heart ache. He hadn't even thought to apologize for what he and his wife had done to her mother, yet he came running to protect his other daughter. Nian told him, "You stayed silent when they hurt my mother, and again when your wife and her daughter humiliated me. But now you rush here to save your other daughter?" Her father replied that he didn't want things to escalate. He claimed he never lied about her mother, that her mother had also been cheating on him with Ming's father. Nian was furious, refusing to believe such accusations about her mother, but she agreed to drop the case on one condition, that he divorce Lee and make Nian the only legal heir. Otherwise, she would let Ming send Yao to prison. Zhou agreed, wanting to protect Yao from jail. When Lee heard what happened, she broke down crying and begged Zhou not to divorce her. Zhou told her it would just be temporary, that they'd remarry after a short while. Convinced by his words, she calmed down, but deep inside she was burning with hatred toward Nian. The next day, Nian went to her father's house to deliver the reconciliation papers signed by Ming and to collect the finalized divorce documents. Lee pretended to act humble, saying, "Your father needs care, and I'll still take care of him. After all, we're family. You should stand by your sister." She even brought up Nian's late mother. That made Nian furious. "Don't you dare mention my mother again," Nian shouted. "It's enough that you caused her death." Zhou snapped back angrily, claiming that her mother took her own life out of guilt for cheating on him. Nian's anger exploded further, and at that moment, Ming's assistant entered with a nurse named Jilan. Nian was shocked to see her, as she had been searching for this nurse for a long time without success. That's when she realized Ming had helped find her. Nian asked Jilan about what had really happened when her mother was alive. Jilan confessed that she had been her mother's nurse because her mother suffered from depression. She gave her prescribed medication on schedule, until Lee, who was Ming's father's mistress at the time, approached her. Lee offered Jilan a large sum of money to clear her debts in exchange for secretly switching the medication to strong sedatives that would drive Nian's mother insane. Joe shouted that Jilan was lying, but Jilan handed them proof, papers showing Lee had paid her, along with records of the altered medications. Lee insisted it was all false, saying she only did it because she was in love, but Jilan continued. Lee had also tormented Nian's mother mentally, constantly calling and threatening her, saying cruel things to worsen her fragile mental state, until one day she told her outright to just end it. Nian's mother, no longer in control of her mind due to the drugs, obeyed that terrible suggestion and jumped off the roof. Joe stood in shock. He slapped Lee and walked away, leaving her behind. Nian remained frozen, devastated by everything she'd learned and by the injustice her mother had endured. She wandered off alone, depressed and broken, returning to the very place where her mother had died. When Ming found out where she was, he rushed there. He saw her standing on the edge of the mall's rooftop, drinking, swaying dangerously. Ming reached her just in time, pulling her to safety before she could fall. He brought her home and stayed by her side the entire night. When Nian woke up the next morning, Ming told her that she had been talking all night. She looked at him in confusion and asked, "Talking? What do you mean?" Then she suddenly realized she had spoken. Her voice had come back. She was stunned and overjoyed. Ming smiled and explained that while he was carrying her down from the rooftop, she had been crying and screaming her mother's name, speaking nonstop. Nian couldn't believe it. After so long, she could finally speak again. Ming smiled softly, saying how happy he was to hear her voice once more. Later, Ming took her to his grandfather's birthday celebration. Everyone was surprised and emotional to hear Nian speak again. During the party, Ming's grandfather pulled him aside and said, "Everything is finally settled. We've bought out the Zhou family's shares. It's time for you to end things with Nian." Ming frowned and replied, "This isn't the right time, Grandpa." But his grandfather insisted, saying that a young woman was returning from abroad, someone Ming had once promised to marry, and that he must honor his word and break things off with Nian. Ming felt torn but didn't show it. He returned to the table and continued the celebration as if nothing had happened. During the meal, the grandfather offered Nian a slice of cake, but she politely declined, explaining that she was allergic to dairy and butter. Ming's uncle, Hong, immediately focused on her words, remembering something, and the grandfather's expression changed slightly too. Later, he quietly asked for a DNA test between Nian, Ming's deceased father, and himself, because Ming's father had the exact same allergy. Hong overheard this conversation and smirked, clearly planning something. The next day, Ming prepared the property contract to return Nian's land to her, since their initial deal was technically over and he had no reason to keep her by his side anymore. Nian accepted the papers and was about to leave when Ming stopped her. He said, "Just as I helped you expose Lee and her crimes, now I need your help. We must expose my Uncle Hong to grandfather. He was the one who secretly filmed us at the hotel to create that scandal." Nian hesitated but agreed to help, saying they could continue cooperating a little longer. Around the same time, the paternity test results arrived, and they confirmed that Nian was actually Ming's father's daughter. That meant Nian was Ming's cousin, and the grandfather's granddaughter. Shocked and overjoyed, the old man immediately rushed to Ming's house. He asked bluntly when Ming and Nian planned to separate. Ming was forced to tell the truth, that their engagement was originally fake, just a partnership to help each other. But now things had changed. "At first it was just a deal," Ming said quietly. "But somewhere along the way, I developed real feelings for her. I don't want to end it." The grandfather looked at him, surprised. "So you're willing to give up everything for her?" he asked. Ming nodded slightly. "I don't want to upset you, Grandpa. But yes, I love her." The old man paused, then smiled warmly. "If you truly love each other, I won't stand in your way." Deep down, he was even happier knowing Nian was his own granddaughter, and not part of the Zhou family. After he left, Nian found herself replaying Ming's words in her mind. His confession had touched her deeply, but she quickly reminded herself that maybe he only said it to escape his grandfather's marriage plans. "He doesn't really love me," she whispered to herself. The next day, the grandfather visited Ming at his office and told him firmly, "If you love Nian that much, then marry her. I want the wedding to happen no later than next month." Ming was startled. "Grandpa, you know I'm ill. I have a psychological condition." The grandfather laughed it off. "Any mental issue can be cured by marriage. Still, I'll have a good doctor look after you this month." Ming sighed heavily and had no choice but to agree. He began his first therapy session, but during the appointment, the doctor asked to speak privately with Nian. The doctor explained Ming's condition, that he suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, which had developed into several phobias, including an intense fear of close physical contact. He told Nian that she could help with Ming's treatment. Of course, she immediately agreed. After everything Ming had done for her, she wanted to help. Following the doctor's instructions, Nian began staying close to Ming wherever he went, sitting beside him, holding his hand, even accompanying him to work. Ming felt suffocated and awkward. His condition made such closeness extremely uncomfortable, but Nian didn't care. She told him firmly, "This is part of your treatment." The doctor said it's necessary. Her next assignment was to make Ming watch a horror movie to desensitize him to the sight of blood. But as soon as the bloody scenes appeared, Ming panicked. "You're making it worse, not better," he said, gripping the chair. Nian shook her head stubbornly. "The doctor told me this is exactly what you need." He told her that Ming was sick just like she had been, that just as she had managed to heal and regain her voice, she could now help him overcome his psychological trauma too. That was why he needed to listen to her. Ming was moved by her words and nodded in agreement. But suddenly, the power went out, and the television shut down with a loud pop. They both went downstairs to check the electrical fuse box, and in the darkness, Nian accidentally stumbled and fell into Ming's arms. Embarrassed, she quickly ran back to her room. The next day, she avoided him completely, too shy to face him after what happened. Ming didn't pressure her. He understood she was embarrassed, and went to work alone. Later that evening, he texted her saying he'd arranged for someone to come and fix the electricity that night. When Nian saw that he was acting normal, she relaxed too. She went out to the supermarket to buy groceries so she could cook dinner. But as she shopped, Lee's assistant was secretly watching her. As soon as Nian left the store, Lee's men ambushed her and forced her into a car. At the same time, Ming was out buying a gift for Nian when he received a call from Lee. Her voice was cold and threatening. She gave him an address and told him to come immediately, or she would kill Nian. Terrified, Ming raced to the location. When he arrived, he saw Lee holding Nian hostage, an electric shock device in her hand. Lee began torturing Nian with it, sending jolts of pain through her body. Ming shouted for her to stop and begged her to let Nian go. "I'll give you anything you want. Just leave her alone," he pleaded. But Lee's eyes were full of rage. "I don't want anything," she screamed, "except to see her dead." She then tried to push Nian off the rooftop, but Ming managed to grab her just in time. He had already alerted security before coming, so guards rushed in and arrested Lee on the spot. Ming immediately ran to Nian, terrified she might be hurt. He held her close, his voice trembling as he said, "I don't want to waste another second. I love you. I really do. I love you more than anything." Nian's eyes filled with tears, overwhelmed. She confessed that she loved him too, completely and deeply. They embraced, and soon after, preparations for their wedding began. Ming's mental condition steadily improved, and they spent happy days choosing wedding dresses and planning their ceremony. One day, however, Hong Yu visited Nian while Ming was away. His expression was serious. "You and Ming, your siblings," he said quietly. Nian froze. "What? What are you talking about?" He handed her a DNA report. It showed she was the daughter of Ming's father. Nian's heart pounded as she shook her head. "That's impossible." "You're lying." But Hong Yu continued, pulling out more documents and even old photos. "Your mother was in a relationship with Ming's father. This isn't slander. It's the truth. They loved each other deeply and planned to marry, but your grandfather stopped them. So your mother married Joe instead, and the two lost contact for 10 years. Then they met again later." Nian's world shattered. She wanted to deny it, but the evidence in front of her made her falter. Hong Yu leaned closer and said coldly, "This isn't the time for shock. You must end your relationship with Ming. He's your brother." Nian's eyes welled with tears. Without a word, she turned and ran, crying uncontrollably. She went straight to her father Joe's house and demanded, "Tell me the truth. Am I really your daughter or not?" Joe looked down and after a long silence said, "No, you're not my daughter." At that same moment, Hong Yu called Ming and asked to meet. When Ming arrived, Hong Yu smirked and said, "I know about you and Nian, that you're siblings." She ran off in shock after finding out he handed Ming the DNA report and added, "The old man knows too. I can't believe he's letting this marriage happen. How could he?" Ming's face stayed calm, showing no surprise. Hong Yu narrowed his eyes. "Ah, so you already know. That means you're not really my brother's biological son, are you? The old man brought in an outsider and made him head of our family's empire, while I, the real heir, take orders from you." Ming asked quietly, "So what do you want?" Hong Yu replied coldly, "I want you to resign. Step down from everything. The inheritance, the company, all of it. Leave the country like you once planned. Do that, and I'll stay silent about everything I know. You have one day to decide. Meanwhile, Joe confessed to Nian the truth about the past. He said, I truly loved your mother. My father forced me to marry her, but I wasn't unhappy. I was grateful. When I found out she was pregnant, I already knew you weren't my child, but I decided to accept it, to pretend I didn't know. I chose to stay silent and raise you as my own. He paused, his face heavy with regret. But later, I made my own mistakes. I fell into Lee's trap, and she got pregnant with Yao. She forced him to divorce Nian's mother and marry her instead. During that time, Nian's mother reconnected with Ming's father, which made Joe furious. To get back at her, Joe continued his affair with Lee and began tormenting Nian's mother until she eventually went mad. Nian was devastated when she learned all this. She ran to her mother's grave, sobbing uncontrollably. You lived your whole life trying to prove your innocence, she cried. But today I realized it was all a lie. And the worst part is, I've fallen in love with my brother. She wept harder, not knowing that Ming wasn't actually her brother at all. Afterward, Nian returned home and began packing her things to leave. Ming stopped her and asked her to stop crying. She looked at him tearfully and said, I can't do this anymore. We can't stay together. We're siblings. Ming quickly told her the truth. We're not siblings. Grandfather forced my father to adopt me. I was never biologically part of this family. Nian froze, staring at him. He explained everything, and she finally believed him. She said softly, Then let's leave everything behind and go far away together. But Ming shook his head. I can't do that. Not yet. I owe my grandfather everything. When my adoptive father and I joined the family, they were struggling financially. The Zhou family took advantage of that and bought up all our properties until my father lost everything. From that day, I swore to repay my grandfather and father for taking me in, by helping them get everything back. He looked at her with deep pain in his eyes. I can't walk away until I finish what I started. Grandfather knows everything. He's known since the DNA test came out, but we have to pretend to be siblings a little longer so he can make the announcement at the right time. It's part of the plan. A plan we made together to destroy Hong Yu once and for all. Nian listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. She understood, but it broke her heart. Eventually, she nodded and left as he asked, returning to her family home. But the emotional weight was too much. She fainted on the way. Her school principal found her unconscious and took her home, handing her an old diary that had belonged to her late mother. When Nian read it, she finally learned the full truth. Her mother had indeed met Ming's father again after marrying Zhou, but they had never betrayed anyone. Ming's father had wanted to reunite with her, but she refused out of respect for her marriage and her faith. However, someone had secretly taken photos of them together and twisted the story into a scandal. The newspapers published vile rumors calling her mother a cheater, and she never found out who ruined her life. Now, Nian finally understood. Her mother had always been innocent. Determined to clear her name, Nian went straight to the press conference Ming was holding. Wearing a white wedding dress, she walked onto the stage in front of everyone and declared, I am going to marry Ming, and I'm pregnant with his child. The entire room went silent. Ming was stunned. He had no idea what she was planning to say. But before he could react, Hong Yu stood up among the reporters and shouted, How shameless! Ming and Nian are siblings. Gasps filled the hall. The situation spiraled out of control, forcing the grandfather to step forward before everything was ruined. Of course, he revealed the truth. Nian is his real granddaughter, while Ming is his adopted grandson. He trusted Ming completely, which is why he made him responsible for the family properties and companies. The grandfather assessed the situation carefully. After the conference, he pulled Hong Yu aside and scolded him for his actions during the event. Hong Yu arrogantly replied that he would never let the matter go. Meanwhile, Nian approached her grandfather and apologized for ruining his and Ming's plans, saying she hadn't meant to interfere. The grandfather reassured her, saying he wasn't upset and that it was better it happened this way, so the family could finally unite. The next day, Hong Yu met with the company executives, claiming that Ming shouldn't be in charge of the companies. Ming responded calmly that he no longer wanted the responsibility anyway. The grandfather then proposed that Nian take over as the new head. Hong Yu became furious and sarcastically asked if the grandfather really believed Nian was his granddaughter. He admitted that when he discovered Nian's allergy, he had forged a fake DNA test and manipulated events to prevent Ming from becoming company president, all out of jealousy. He had hoped to take control himself, thinking the grandfather would favor him over Ming and Nian. The grandfather told Hong Yu that he was unfit to inherit the company, as his envy and hatred would destroy the family's assets. Ming then confirmed that Nian truly was the grandfather's granddaughter through a legitimate DNA test. Nian also presented evidence that Hong Yu had spread false rumors about her mother's supposed betrayal, using her mother's diary and testimony from her mother's friend to prove the lies. With the truth revealed, Hong Yu's schemes were fully exposed, and he could no longer interfere with the company. Ming continued his role as company president, while Nian returned to run her mother's school. Later, Ming surprised Nian by proposing to her again. She happily accepted, and the two of them became inseparable, like two canaries in a cage. They married, marking the happy conclusion of the story. And finally, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you'll be alerted as soon as our new videos drop. Bye.